I just really felt like, we was not ready. We was not ready to start the half.
They played like they weren't ready to start that half. That was Michigan coach Juwan Howard. I'm Dennis Fithian. Michael Spath is going to join us in just 1 second. I just want to say good afternoon to everybody. Afternoon Live. We've got plenty to talk about. And we're going to get to it all, including talking with Michael Spath, who, if you're watching on the video, you see him right now. Hi, Spath.
Hey, Dennis. How are you, man? This is I'm looking forward to it. A lot of good going on with Michigan basketball, although based off of your opening there with Juwan, I have a feeling we're going to be talking about some struggles for the Michigan basketball team.
Well, there's always positives to, even when you're talking about a team that, is coming off a loss where they were a big time favorite. And we'll get to that. You were a longtime member of the media, and John Harbaugh, Jim's brother, addressed you in a comment over the weekend. We also had Desmond Howard upstaging the Heisman, so to speak. So we've got that to get to. I've got some recruiting, and I wanted to start with the Orange Bowl, though. Michigan football was a fabulous year and everything else. I was looking at a lot of the games that Georgia played this year and just seeing, did anybody else have any success really besides Alabama, that SEC championship game? And you guess what? Not really. Tennessee was up 10-7, but then there was 31 answered by the Dogs and ended up 45-17. Florida, Georgia was up 27-0. They got a score in the fourth, 34-7. Can't really make a case there. Maybe Kentucky, it was 14-7. Georgia at the half, but then 16 unanswered. The Wildcats got a score with 4 seconds to go, 30-13. It shows you Georgia really was dominant, really, and they were the story. The story was maybe they were not just the best team this year, but there was a generational defense, and it was a great team until that SEC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that, if you don't allow, and I'm looking at their box scores right now, I mean, if you didn't allow more than 17 points in a single game leading up to the SEC championship, and other than the Tennessee game where they won 41-17, I mean, besides that, it's 13 points that they didn't allow in any of their other 10 games. I mean, I think that speaks volumes. I think that is tells a true story of who this Georgia Bulldog team is. I mean, they played a couple of good offenses. Kentucky certainly one of them. Florida, everybody talks about, well, Florida was a bust. They were 6-16. But the time that they played Georgia back in October, I mean, it wasn't quite, the wheels hadn't quite fallen off. Obviously, they played a Clemson team really early on in the year, a Clemson team that, has finished the season strong at 9-3, but wasn't quite that when the season began back in early September. I think they are a really good defense. I think what happened is that they didn't play in a tough game all year. You mentioned a couple of the halftimes were close, but they never found themselves in a fourth quarter game, right? I think they showed a stat during the SEC championship that when the quarterback for Georgia was throwing some passes in the fourth quarter against Alabama, it marked only like the 10th and 11th passes that Stetson Bennett had thrown in the entire fourth quarter all season long. And that's because in every single game they found themselves, they were up so big. And so when they found themselves in a tough competitive game in the fourth quarter, they didn't know what to do. The old proverbial, they got knocked to the canvas and they kind of just they stood back up and they were like, the dazed look like, oh my goodness, what can we, how can we win this game? And they didn't respond very well to it. And now the question is, Dennis, and I'm curious your thoughts, is like, they say like, well, once a team has gotten punched in the mouth, it learns how to overcome that, but they actually haven't overcome it yet, right? Like they got punched in the mouth and they stayed down on the canvas. So they haven't shown yet that they're capable of being a team that if they get, Michigan takes it to them again and it's a close game in the first half and then certainly going to the fourth quarter, does Georgia have what it takes yet to prove that they can go out there and win that type of football game? Because we know Michigan can. Michigan did against Wisconsin, did against Nebraska, did against Penn State, did against Ohio State. So they've proven over and over again they can win those type of games.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was. Sometimes people say it's a good loss. They say that a lot of times in the NCAA when you're going into a tournament. If a team's undefeated, you say, oh, well, they can recenter themselves or focus or whatever else. But the part about letting Bama back in, even though that's beyond what they have to win a game before they see Alabama. having an undefeated season, and they had their own demons there they had to slay there. So I think that, losing that opens up some things in their psyche a little bit about, oh no, here we go again. We were supposed to be the most experienced team. We were supposed to be the dominant team. We were supposed to be the ones, that were slapping Alabama upside the head. Instead, it was the other way around. So I think that works against them a little bit. Heading into that game, I picked Georgia. You know what? They really were. There was a lot of house money there. They didn't have to play as desperate. Like their playoff lives weren't at stake. They were already in. Maybe that had something to do with it. It's always tricky trying to figure out, the motivation or, if it worked against them. What really worked against them is that Bryce Young's a really good quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Jameson Williams, that is the wide receiver's name. I mean, he was swerving around and, making plays in the passing game. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah, no, I mean, Bryce Young just won the Heisman Trophy and was, the best quarterback in college football this year. Was he the best player? I mean, I think that's certainly debatable. But I thought he was the best quarterback in college football. And, they were on the ropes just the week before against Auburn. And, it looked like they were going to lose that game. And he had one final possession and late in the second half and drove that team, 95 yards for a touchdown, and kind of really had maybe his Heisman moment in that game, and which a lot of people kind of scoff at because they never should have been in a tight game with Auburn, but he still had his Heisman moment. He still rose up and got the job done. And then you look at his performance against Georgia. I think he threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and was absolutely outstanding in that one. And now you're looking ahead and saying well, does Michigan get beat the same? Does Michigan have to beat them the same way? Do they have to attack Georgia through the air and beat them with Cade McNamara and Roman Wilson and Andrell Anthony and Cornelius Johnson and Eric All? And I don't think so. I think Michigan, proved this year against Ohio State, proved against Wisconsin, Nebraska, proved against Iowa that they're still going to be a run dominant team. What Georgia, if you look at their stats running the football, they have not gone up against a team that has really, really challenged them running the football. Alabama finished with better than 4.5 yards per carry, but did it on, 25 carries, didn't really put up a ton of yards. And so, I think Michigan has to play its game, and its game is running the football, establishing that with Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum and the big plays. The last couple of weeks, they've gotten very creative with some of the things that they've done offensively. They got to continue to do that. Cade McNamara has to continue to throw to the middle of the field and hope that he can get his tight ends and wide receivers in some of those crossing routes, seam routes, pick plays, anything like that can lead to a big play. It's not time for Michigan to suddenly change who they are in these next 3 weeks and say, hey, we're going to be a team that goes, throws for 350 or 400 yards against Georgia. I don't think that'll win. I really don't. I think if Michigan's going to win this game, they've got to be who they are, and who they are is the team that beat Ohio State.
Speaking of the Heisman that you mentioned, we're going to get to some audio coming up here straight ahead in just 1 minute, but I want to close up the OB, the Orange Bowl talk, with at least an early prediction. I just looked at the line, 8.5. The Dogs are favored by, it feels like I picked Ohio State, but I picked Michigan to keep it close enough to stay within the line for whatever that's worth. And I didn't bet on it, so it wasn't worth anything. But to me, it feels like Michigan deserves to be picked in this game for the way that they played the last 2 weeks. So that's at least the way I'm leaning right now. The way they played the last 2 weeks, that 8.5 point spread's not scaring me off. It feels like Michigan deserves to get selected here at least, under 3 weeks to go until New Year's Eve. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the team that showed up against Ohio State, I would take to beat Georgia. I think the team that played the first, third, and fourth quarters against Iowa, I would take to beat Georgia. I think that second quarter was more of a Iowa slog fest. Now Michigan got pinned deep in its own territory pretty consistently, and that was hard to come out of. But yeah, the team that shows up that played against Ohio State shows up on December 31st. They can win that game. But I will tell you what, Dennis, I'm a little bit of a superstitious person. I am the jerk, whoever you want to describe it, who picked Michigan to go 6-6 preseason. Didn't think that they had this in them. I'm the guy who predicted them to lose to Penn State. Wisconsin on the road, Penn State, I predicted them to lose to. Did predict them to lose to Michigan State. I guess I got one right. Predicted them to lose to Ohio State. So I had them losing those 4 games and really some more than that. And so I've been proven wrong every step along the way. And so why not just stick with it? I'll try to take one for the team here, take one for Michigan Nation, and pick against the Wolverines once again, and be prepared to get my comeuppance. And so early on, I'm kind of taking Georgia, we'll say 31 to 24. And yeah, you heard it here first, just like you heard that 6-6 prediction to start the season.
Wow, you are a jerk. Now, let's see if you have a sense of humor. Aiden Hutchinson was on the stage at the Downtown Athletic Club, mentioned Bryce Young already, and here's what transpired up on the stage. This audio is from ESPN.
You know, the main mission was to come back, was to beat Ohio State and win a Big Ten championship. And
Hey, Kenny, I'm glad you're in between them. That's good.
And you know,
Please stay there.
Better than his offensive lineman.
Just throw him under the bus.
Okay, a lot going on there. You know, you had Tebow, you had Aiden Hutchinson saying something about Ohio State, which drew a lot of oohs and ahs. And, you know, Desmond stepped in there and went over the top. Now, all right, you know, you've heard what's being said about inappropriate, upstaging the Heisman, all of that. Just give me your thoughts here. I mean, you're a jerk, but are you a funny jerk?
Right. I mean, I guess that's the question about Desmond Howard. Is he a funny jerk, right, here today? You know, look, I thought what Aiden Hutchinson said was completely above board. I mean, he said all he said is I came back to beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten championship. I mean, that's a true statement. That's what, if you were to ask CJ Stroud, what were your goals this year? He would say to beat Michigan and win a Big Ten championship. I mean, so there's nothing wrong with that. And he went out and accomplished that goal. You know, the Desmond thing, I mean, it's gone back and forth. I think it's a little bit overplayed at this point. Did I think he should have done it in that particular scenario? No. But, I mean, do we need to make it a nuclear story here that runs back and forth between Columbus and Ann Arbor? And I said this over the weekend. I think I tweeted this out, Dennis, that all these Ohio State, they call themselves media. I guess they're not trying to call themselves unbiased media. They're just part of the media that are essentially talking smack to Michigan and saying, you know, you're going to provide motivation and all this stuff to Ohio State. Like, look, you don't get it. If you think that jab is what's driving Ohio State to compete and give it its all for the next 300 and whatever it is, 55 days to beat Michigan, you're sorely mistaken. What Ohio State, their only motivation is they lost to Michigan. They got beat badly by Michigan. Michigan ruined their season, kept them away from a Big Ten title, kept them away from a college football playoff, probably kept CJ Stroud away from the Heisman Trophy. And so that's going to be Michigan. That's going to be Ohio State's motivation. And Michigan's motivation is simple, is we beat them once. We want to make this thing a regular occurrence. We want to go down into Columbus. We want to break the streak in Columbus, which I don't think they've won in Columbus since Drew Henson was a starting quarterback in 2000. And so, you know, it's good old fashioned back and forth trash talk. But at the end of the day, I mean, these two teams are going to get together, you know, like I said, next November 28th or 26th or whatever it is. And this is going to be long forgotten, this type of comment. They're just having a little bit of fun. You know, I think the fact that Desmond has doubled down on it on Twitter, and then Zach Smith from Ohio, the former Ohio State, just, man, like, you know what it is, Dennis, and you know this better than anybody. It's December 13th. College football ended a week ago. We don't have any games, any relevant games probably until the New Year's 6 on December 29th or 30th. And so we're just talking about it because there's not a lot to talk about when it comes to college football otherwise. Yeah,
you mentioned your Twitter. There it is on the screen. But for those that are listening, at Michael Spath, ITH there at the end, you probably follow him. There might be a person or two that is not, and you should, because he's funny and he's got a lot of information there. I pretty much see it how you do. And, you know, it's easy to just try. It's college football, but it is college football. And, you know, Desmond, for as long as he's been on game day or anything else, he's never put himself out there as like, hey, I'm a bastion of just, complete right down the middle. You're coming to me, you're going to get it straight. No, he's all Michigan State fans hate Desmond Howard because he always calls him Sparty and always picks against him and, you know, totally plays the rivalry thing. I've never met an Ohio State fan that liked Desmond Howard. Now, they hate anybody who grew up in the state of Ohio that defected to Michigan. And so him coming over the top on this is right there. So it is the rivalry, and it's what you expect. Like, nobody's telling Desmond, hey, Desmond, you know, put a cork in it. I think ESPN – I think they like it, and certainly the rivalry. And I'll come back to this, Michael. That and unfortunately, it went against me for so many years. So this century, to the spoils goes. The victor goes to spoil.
Yeah, right.
Won this time around, so it all comes back. Check the scoreboard. All right, it was Michigan. So you know, Desmond had to take a lot, and you know now he's given a little bit. So you know, it's Michigan's year.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, I bet you, because I mean, a lot of people have said like, well, he's just not going away. I bet you that there was some encouragement from ESPN to keep it up, because this is a network who employs Stephen A. Smith, that employs Lee Corso, that employs Dick Vitale, who are all essentially personalities. They're not really analysts, right? I mean, Lee Corso on College Game Day is not an analyst. He is essentially a cartoon character that is supposed to be funny and loud and abrasive, and then put on the helmet or put on the mascot or whatever like that. I mean, they have Kirk Herbstreit and they have Desmond Howard. They have a Wolverine and they have a Buckeye on purpose to have a little bit of that back and forth. Charles Woodson was on the Fox pregame show, and he's sitting there swinging his flag around, and they love that type of stuff because that's what excites. That's what gets fans into it, whether you're a Michigan fan that loves it or you're a State, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, whatever fan that hates it. And so that's exactly what they're going for. I know that, you know that, the people in the media understand that. It's really, I mean, if you're a fan and you're alienated by it, you're upset about it, then then you're not having any fun. You're not having any fun. I'll say this too, Dennis. Interesting about these Buckeyes, because I have a good friend who is a Buckeye, and I've known him for about 15 years. Out of those 15 years, Michigan's beaten him once. And I mean, every year, the week before the game, he, starts texting me and he's sending me score predictions and saying all this and that. And every year Michigan has lost that game except for 2011. And every year, shortly after the game, he's like, "Oh, I thought you guys played pretty," like it's that backhanded compliment. And he's waiting for it. And I like talk about how good his team played and, congratulations. And, "Oh, you owe me a beer, Spath," and the whole thing. Did I hear from him once this year after the Michigan-Ohio State game? No. Completely silent. In fact, I've texted him a couple of times and he has just not responded back to me at all. So you're right. To the victor goes the spoils. And what Ohio State is showing over and over again is they're sore losers. And so be it, man. Be a sore loser and just keep your whiny, whatever to yourself for the next 300 and something days. I'm going to relish it. I've been relishing it for 2 weeks, and nothing's going to take away my enjoyment factor of beating the Buckeyes.
Well, you know what? The E in ESPN and maybe the E in Michael, they stand for entertainment.
There you go.
There's part of that. You mentioned the media, and John Harbaugh, courtesy of the Baltimore Ravens site, he had this to say about his brother winning Coach of the Year. That's not him. Here he is.
And to do it, the way they did it this year, after being written off by so many, is very, I don't know, it's a good feeling, and I'm proud of him, happy for him, happy for all of them. And he's always been a great coach. And all those that want to pile on, especially some of the local media there, there you have it, back in your face. That's how I look at it. He'd never say that, but I'll say it.
All right, there you go. John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
In your face. Now, you're technically, for time, you've been part of the local media here for like 20 years, maybe over 20 years, Spath. So when you hear that from John Harbaugh, do you think, "Oh yeah, there you go, John, he's giving it to you," or do you feel like you got to say something?
Yeah, I mean, he is just what you said. The victor goes the spoils, right? So I mean, they're Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh and Jack Harbaugh and Jackie Harbaugh, and every Harbaugh, Sarah, and all the kids. I mean, they get to stand up there and beat their chests a little bit and pat themselves on the back and say, we're happy what we did and congratulations to ourselves. And, I think there's a preconception or a misconception, I should say, about what the media's role is, Dennis, and you know this better than anybody, right? I mean, when I got into sports media, I said, hey, I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I possibly can. Now I've kind of, since hanging up my microphone or hanging up my pen, I've kind of said like, hey, I'm going to still try to give you as much media analysis as possible, but I'm going to be a fan because I'm allowed to be a fan. But you're not supposed to be a fan. You're supposed to tell it like it is. You're supposed to call it, offer some unbiased analysis. And the unbiased analysis is from 2015 to 2020. Michigan didn't beat Ohio State. They didn't win the Big Ten championship. They lost a couple of those Ohio State games in embarrassing fashion. They lost to Michigan State. They right now, Jim Harbaugh has a 3-4 record against Michigan State. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you can have both things. You can have a program that for 6 years didn't accomplish what it was set out to do and was disappointing to some. And you can still have a program in year 7 that won a Big Ten championship and beat Ohio State and had a great season and now is giving a lot of optimism for the future. And certainly, you expect and hope that beating Ohio State and win Big Ten titles, at least in the next 5 years, happens on their time or happens 2 more times. So you can have both of these things. You don't have to be, hey, you know what? Just because you didn't praise Jim Harbaugh when they were going 9-4 in 2019, you can't praise him in 2021 for going 12-1. I mean, that's really not how it works. That's such like a black and white. You have to be one or the other. And at the end of the day, I mean, you've done a good job of this, walking down the middle. And I think I've done a good job of that. And I think other people in the media have done a good job of that. Nick Baumgartner's one of them. Angelique Shengalis is one of them who says, like, when they lose, they're going to write about a loss. When they win, they're going to write about a win. And so, if John wants to call everybody out for calling out his brother, so be it. I mean, that's his every right to do so. Have fun with it. Michigan fans are having fun with it. At the end of the day, we're all just glad as Michigan fans that in year 7, Jim Harbaugh got the job done, and I've been relishing and enjoying every part of it this season. And I look forward to an entire offseason where I get a gloat to my friends and be excited about what's to come for the Michigan program.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I like John Harbaugh, but if I had John Harbaugh and I was out with him or just talking with him, I'd say, you know what, John, it is my guess that the media, the fans, alums, and former Michigan football players, if you took a poll from them last year, I think there would be more Michigan fans that were writing Jim Harbaugh off than were staying in his corner. And I can't say, well, that's just fact. That's my feeling. But I think that was the case. I mean, it just shows you like the aftermath of Michigan beating Ohio State. People were, loved it so much. There was so much intensity about it, and it still really hasn't worn off. And yeah, a lot of that has to do with all those losses that you talked about, but you can't, that's the thing. Like when people say, boy, you really have to win that game. What would it be like, if you went 0-5 and then didn't, you had the pandemic where, they were talking about hanging 100. I mean, it was intense the other way. So yeah, you get the victory and there's going to be some of that, but to me, it was a lot of that was understandable. Everybody, there's going to be people that say crazy things on both sides, but I think a lot of it was understandable, like, the critique on Jim Harbaugh. Not all of it, but, some of it, a lot of it.
And I've said a couple of times, I mean, I give Jim Harbaugh a ton of credit because, a couple of things. One, he was able to, after other seasons where he wasn't able to get his players to buy in and they had some culture issues, guys leaving to skip the bowl game, Cron Higdon, who went the 6th round or maybe didn't even get drafted and was skipping the bowl game. And a lot of the other players were skipping their bowl games and they were having some internal problems. He was able to, in this past year, root out all of those things, find the right leadership in Aiden Hutchinson, Hassan Haskins, and Cade McNamara, and bring those together. He was able to remake himself and remake his coaching staff to get younger, to relate to these guys better. And he was able to establish an offensive identity this year that, I didn't think was going to win in 2021, where it was a run first, create the big plays from that and just use your quarterback as someone who can have a couple of big plays, but certainly wasn't, throwing the ball 40 times a game. I didn't think that he could do those things. He went out and did those things. And I'm really impressed with him, and so I think it bodes well for the future because Jim is someone who is willing to evolve. And he's certainly, maybe he's found the right chemistry now. Maybe that leadership gets passed down from senior to junior to sophomore, and it's internalized now. So there's a lot of positive things that have come out of this season. And I think you could have been skeptical of Jim going into the year, as I was, and yet be incredibly impressed and overwhelmed by his performance this year, and be excited about his future. I know I am.
All right, Michael, I've got 3 things you can answer them really fast.
Sure.
One of them, I got the Michigan recruiting spotlight. I've got the memorabilia minute, and I want to ask you about Michigan basketball. For Michigan basketball, I do have some audio from Hunter Dickinson after the game, and he was asked about this recent stretch and where they're at right now. And here's what the big men had to say after losing to Minnesota.
There's no championships being had in December. That said, obviously there's some type of I guess haste to try to get better and not go in another 4-4 record in an 8-game stretch.
All right. I think he wanted to say urgency. He said haste there, but, I was just looking at some of the numbers. He's right. Nobody's crowning any champs here in December, but they have 3 games left this month. They have 8 in January, 8 in February, and 2 in March. So if you just break these, if you give them these 3, which I don't know, it's easy for me to do, give them these next 3, they should be wins, and like they're going to be favorites, but whatever. And then if they just split in the Big Ten, it gets them to be, at 18 wins.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to win. You have to at least go 500, but there's some teams that get in it with 18 wins, but you better think about 19, 20, winning some games in the Big Ten tournament. What it says is that they better win these next 3, and the Big Ten's really difficult. What are your thoughts? You're not about them making the tournament, just how you're looking at, Michigan right now after 10 games?
Yeah, I'm not really thinking much about the tournament because for me, this team has got such significant issues that tournament talk, we'll address that when we get to February 1st, honestly. They had a couple of nice games there the last couple of weeks where they shot the ball well from 3. But if you want to look at an overwhelming theme, they've been a bad 3-point shooting team all year. I'm looking at their numbers right now. I mean, they're shooting 33.7%. That's 153rd nationally. I mean, that's just not very good. This past game, 3 of 18 in the loss to Minnesota. Devontae Jones, the point guard who continues to be an enigma and continues to be, someone who really, really has not won over the fan base yet. A lot of calls for Frankie Collins to take over the point guard spot. I mean, he had 4 3-pointers in that game, missed them all to the point where Minnesota, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a team fall off and give a guy. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. He had at least 5 to 8 feet when he was standing at the 3-point line that they were giving him and saying, we just don't think you can do that. Right. We don't think you can make
it. Did a little bit to Xavier Simpson a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and worse, right? Worse than that. And so, I mean, Eli Brooks didn't shoot very well. Caleb Houston didn't shoot very well. They don't have a lot of good on-the-ball defenders, other than Eli Brooks and maybe a little bit of Brandon Johnson. I mean, they're just hurting in a lot of different places. And if they don't get their point guard's position, figured out here fairly soon, whether it's Devontae Jones or Frankie Collins, I mean, they're going to be in trouble all year. I mean, you look at the Michigan State team last year, and they went from Cassius Winston to Rocket Watts, and now Rocket Watts is gone. And they struggled all year. And to a man, I mean, it comes down to the point guard spot in college basketball. And if you don't have a good point guard, you're not going to be successful. And I think the same thing can be said for the NBA. I mean, the Detroit Pistons, our local team here, has not had a good point guard for a while. And they're hoping this young man, Killian Hayes, and he's not really getting the job done. So if you have point guard problems, you have team problems. And right now, Michigan has a major point guard problem. They've got other issues too, toughness and a willing, as you said, the urgency. Where was the urgency in that second half as they started to fall behind? And that's when you got to ramp up defensively. If you're not hitting the shots, you've got to really, say like we're going to be a great defensive team, and they're not a great defensive team right now either. So I'm looking at their schedule here, and they've got Southern Utah, Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Central Florida to close out January. Yeah, I mean, they should win all 3 of those. They should win all 3 of those games, although the Central Florida one, right now, Ken Pom has only got them a 68% chance to win, and it's got a close game. A 58% chance to win. So that's a tight one. And then they play Rutgers. I mean, you'd love to see them go 4-0 in this stretch because then they've got Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois, the 3 best teams in the Big Ten. And those could all 3 be losses. And so, I don't really think too much about numbers. What do they have to be? How many games do they have to win? I just know this. They got to play a lot better basketball, and they got to play a lot better basketball really fast here, or they're going to be in trouble.
All right, you're on top of it there, no doubt. All right, when it comes to the Memorabilia Minute, I always just show anything memorabilia-wise, but when I have a guest like you, that I know that in that house that you have there, you probably got some great piece of Michigan memorabilia. Is there anything within reach that is Michigan that you could show?
I mean, we've got like our Christmas tree up behind me here. There are quite a few Michigan ornaments on the tree. I could grab one of those.
Grab one.
You want to see that?
Yeah, you know what? I like Michigan ornaments on the tree. I really like. You know what? It's making me think that if Michigan wins the Orange Bowl, maybe I get an Orange Bowl ornament for my tree. That would be good. It's a very nice tree with the Santa Claus hat. And I saw your son. He had his own tree. There you go. Yeah,
So
a Wolverine, an old school Wolverine.
I think it's a bear, actually. I think it's an actual bear, teddy bear.
Teddy
with
bear.
with an old school helmet on it or something like that. But Dennis, I live in a divided household. I'm married to a Michigan State Spartan, a great one. I don't let anybody say anything bad about her ever or her lineage. And so we don't have a lot of Michigan stuff up in the house just because, we've got this divide. Now downstairs in the basement, a little bit of a man cave. I've got a big picture from the Big Chill that the December, I think it was actually December 4th. It was just a recent day, December 4th, 2011, just celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the Big Chill at the Big House between Michigan and Michigan State. So I've got that downstairs. I've got some signed pictures from Bo and from Lloyd Carr, my older brother and I, when we went to the 98 Rose Bowl and we sat on the 50-yard line and we watched Michigan win the national championship. I got that signed by those guys. And then honestly, what's sitting on my fridge right now is I've got the Michigan-Ohio State game from just 3 weeks ago. The ticket stub is on my fridge right now. So a couple of things, not overwhelming in our house, but
what was it like sitting out there? I know you're used to the comfort of the press box, and you're wearing short sleeves. I've seen you up there in the press box. Like middle of winter, you'll be wearing a short sleeve shirt up in the press box. So
I would have loved to have been in the press box. But I'll say this, the environment was second to none. I have been to, you probably calculate for yourself, Dennis, and you've probably been to more because you went to a lot of the Detroit sporting events too. I would guess that I've been to 250 sporting events in my life between the 4 major sports in Detroit, Michigan football, basketball, and hockey. I've never experienced an environment like that in my life. Not even the Final Fours that I've been to, the national championship in 1998. There's been some great Michigan hockey environments that I've been to, especially when they had the regionals at Yost. But that atmosphere at the Big House a couple of weeks ago was electric. I don't think I sat down the entire game. I stood up. Now, a lot of that was like stomping your feet to stay warm. But the hair was just standing up on your arms the entire game. It really was incredible. And I'm so glad that I experienced it outside with the fans, with my brother, a memory that I'm going to hold on to for the rest of my life.
That is awesome. Now the recruiting spotlight you see every day, I say something about recruiting. Michigan signing day, the early signing period is Wednesday, so that's the big day. Michigan is all the way up to number 9 in the Rivals team rankings. They have 20 commits, and the inside scoop here today is that Michigan had a defensive tackle, a local defensive tackle that's already committed elsewhere in Ann Arbor last night, and it's like one of these things coming out, somebody to keep an eye on up to signing day. And you know what? I'm going to say it a few times this week, but I looked at the 2018 class that Michigan had. Rivals had them ranked 24. But man, you go through that class from Ryan Hayes to Ronnie Bell to Haskins. There's so many 3-stars in there. Schoonmaker, guys that helped this team out get to where they're at right now. Yeah, I want all 5 stars, and if not 4 stars. But man, getting the right player and developing them and getting them out there, that's just as key, maybe more key than any kind of ranking that you'll get on Wednesday. But Spath, I know you like recruiting. I know you'll be watching and listening and taking it all in on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how they finish up here. I know they've been trying to make a late push. I think a lot of fans were expecting after the Big Ten title that Michigan was going to suddenly, get in the door with, a bunch of 5 stars and finish out this class. But, that's not really how it works. Those guys are committed elsewhere. Where the payoff could really be could be in that 2023 class. Because now all these players who are juniors, going to be seniors next year, have it fresh in their mind that Michigan is a Big Ten champion and playing in the college football playoff. And so, I would look at the 2023 and 2024 classes as really maybe getting those star bumps. But you're right. Look at this class from 2018 and the 3 stars and the 2 stars that became the backbone of this team. And you mentioned a couple of them, but Vincent Gray has been a backbone player for this team. Ronnie Bell, when he wasn't hurt, guys that have played and certainly look like they're going to have bigger roles. Michael Barrett and Taylor Upshaw for the Wolverines. Julius Welshoff, Luke Schoonmakers really came on. Ryan Hayes, Jamon Green was a starter until DJ Turner took his spot, and then Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson was a 4-star, one of the better players, and coming out of that class. But it has been. I remember when they got it. I was really into recruiting at the time and kind of thinking like, man, like this is the future of Michigan's classes right here. Like this class is just not going to be that great. And this might be the start of the downward slope for Michigan. And in turn, it turned out to be the anchor. And Jim Harbaugh's mentioned Hassan Haskins and Aiden Hutchinson a couple of times this year about being the guys that carried this team. And both of them, from that 2018 class, I mean, it's going to go down as one of the, you can make the case it's going to go down as one of Michigan's better classes in the last 20 years because of how they came together and what they've accomplished as a team.
They win 2 more games. I'll say it right now. It'll be the best class.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't know. Woodson and Brady came out of the same class. And I know you don't look, but it's hard not to put what they did after Michigan into the equation, but that's neither here nor there. All right, Michael, great job. And you got a last thing that you wanted to say?
Well, I would just say, I mean, when you mention that, I mean, like, look at a guy like Hassan Haskins. I mean, if you rank the greatest running backs in Michigan history, you're not going to rank him ahead of Mike Hart. You're not going to rank him ahead of Jamie Morris or probably Ron Johnson or
Anthony Thomas,
Rob Lytle. But I mean, like, what he went out and accomplished this year is so incredible that he's going to get a bump. He's going to get a natural bump because of what he did. And, his numbers, 1,300 yards, he's probably got a chance if he has a good game to finish like 1,400 yards. He's already got the touchdown record. I mean, he is going to get a favorable bump because of what he helped this team accomplish. And he should, because he was one of the most critical players for the Wolverines. And so I'm just excited. We got a couple more weeks here. It's December 12th right now. So we got 18 days until Michigan plays again. Hopefully we'll enjoy some Michigan basketball wins between now and then. And, all bets are off that week after Christmas, getting excited for the Orange Bowl against Georgia.
Great job, Michael Spath. You don't sound like a jerk at all. You did an awesome job. Thanks for joining us and giving us so much of your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dennis.
All right, there he is, Michael Spath. Thanks.